to open the book. I wonder if you like stories. When Jesus was a little boy, there were no storybooks for children. Most ordinary people couldn't read, so storytelling was very important. Jewish mums and dads would tell the children stories passed down by their grandfathers since God first made the world. Jesus told lots of stories to anyone that would listen. He used his stories to teach people important things. Sometimes he was even called the teacher. He became famous for his storytelling, and people used to flock to hear him. It worried Jesus that people might go away without really understanding what he was telling them. So usually he took the trouble to explain the meaning of the stories. Let's open the book at the story of A Tale of Two Houses. And let's see if we can see what Jesus was saying here.
Two men decided to build a house, one each. They looked around God's beautiful land to find the best spot. The houses needed to be near water and fertile ground so that they could grow crops and vegetables and graze their cattle and sheep. Both men thought it would also be good to have a really beautiful view so that when the day's work was done, they could sit outside relaxing with their wives and enjoy all that God had provided for them. Now these two men, let's call this one Farid and the other one Simeon. They each set off to find the right place to build a house. Farid fairly quickly found what he was looking for, a good view, near the water, with some land, so he collected his tools and started to work. Simeon poked and prodded and hummed and awed, and eventually he too found a place that he thought was perfect for his house. And so they set to work. Farid worked quickly. He had the walls half up before Simeon had made his first clay brick. All Simeon had done was to dig a big, shallow pit.
Get a wiggle on, mate. It's nearly summer. The rate you're going, the roof won't be on by the autumn.
Simeon said nothing. He stared at Farid's house, went back to work on his pit, and as he worked, he prayed.
Help me to do this right, Lord. You know the best way to build a house and to live a life. I will trust in you always.
Hurry up, mate. It's nearly autumn. My roof is nearly finished. Your walls only, what's that, about a metre high? You'll never be ready when the cold comes.
And Simeon said nothing. He stared at Farid's house and then went back to work on his pit. And as he worked, he prayed.
Help me to do this right, Lord. You know the best way to build a house and the best way to live a life. I will trust in you always.
Come on, mate. The winter starts really soon. It'll get frosty. It's much too late to finish the roofing now. My house is finished and we are moving in tomorrow. I'm just going to hang some pictures up. We'll be as snug as a bug in a rug. You'll never be ready for winter. You mark my words.
Simeon still said nothing. He stared at Farid's house and went back to work on his pit. As he worked, he prayed.
Help me to do this right, Lord. You know the best way to build a house and the best way to live a life. I will trust in you always.
Simeon finished his house just before the winter storms began. Torrential rain fell. The winds blew, and soon the level of the river rose very high. On and on went the rain for days and days. Simeon was glad he'd taken such care with the foundations of his house. He made sure he'd found a piece of flat land with a good rocky base. He'd made his clay bricks, he'd built slowly and carefully, and made sure everything was watertight. He trusted God to show him the best way to both build his house and to live his life. Simeon peered out of his small window just in time to see Farid's house give its first wobble. The ground it was built on seemed to be disappearing into the river. He stared at Farid's house as it swayed and lurched, and then fell to pieces with a loud crash. All that was left of Farid's house was a heap of mush in the sliding sand near the river bank. Sensible Simeon was like the people who listened to Jesus and built their lives on what he told them. Foolish Farid was like those who didn't.
So, did you manage to work out the meaning of the story? Sensible Simeon was like the person who listens to the wise words of Jesus and trusts them. That person builds a good, strong life for themselves, just like the good, strong house. Now, let's close our eyes. If building a good life means listening to wise words, whose words are we going to listen to? And whose words will we ignore? Now I'm going to say a prayer. And if you'd like to make it your prayer, you can say Amen at the end. Dear God, help us to listen to those who have wise words to share, and help us to ignore silly ideas. Amen.
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 Let's say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you for listening.